buddies. Thanks for joining me again today. Here it is, part 3 of the Core Crusher 2000. We're going to be working in on the back and on the belly. So as always, crank up your iPod. We're going to town. We're going to start on your back for this, and we'll first start with the breathing bridges. So your feet are flat to the floor, the knees are pointed at the ceiling. You'll press into your heels, squeeze your cheeks, press your hips up, and roll it all the way back down. So we want your tailbone to be the first thing to leave the floor, and we want the tailbone to be the last thing that returns to the floor. So if you would like a little bit more, you can bring your heels as close into your hips as you can, come onto the balls of your feet. You'll have to press a little bit higher. Some people like to take their hands underneath the back, and that's just not something that I care to do. Don't worry about it. If that is something you want to do, you're always welcome to do whatever makes you happy. And if you like, you can kick one foot and then the other. One foot and then the other. So you come all the way back down in between. That'll make your thighs have to work a little bit harder. Then we're going to stay in a bridge, and we're going to take one foot out to the side, the other foot out to the side. One foot back to center, the other foot back to center. Out and out and in and in. And out and out and in and in. And your hips will naturally fall a little bit as you're taking your feet out and in, but we want to minimize that as much as possible. Keep those hips lifted nice and high as much as you can. Then we're going to bring the feet together, and the knees are going to go to the side and back to center. Side to center. So you're keeping your hips up off of the floor as much as you can. Again, they'll naturally dip a little bit. Good, and roll it down. For baby bear, you're going to extend your right leg out parallel to the floor as low as you can get it without it actually touching. We don't want it up here, we want it way down here, but your heel is not resting on the floor. If baby bear works and you want mama bear, point your left toes straight up at the ceiling, and you're really using your belly button to pull straight down here. So it's like you're trying to touch your belly button to the floor beneath you. If you'd like more, you can tuck your chin to your chest, bring your arms out parallel to the floor. If you want even more, take a really strong exhale, and with each exhale, pump your arms. So you're going to want to keep your knees as straight as you can, unless that's pulling on you, and then you can take them more to a 90 degree. But we want your toes and feet to be engaged. They can be flexed, they can be pointed, they can't be neutral, because they'll pull on the base of your spine. The same is true for like a kind of bent knee. You want it either at 90 degrees or straight. 90, 180, that's all we have. So you're really using your abdominals, pulling down with your belly button to pull the weight of your legs up and forward. And you don't have to have your head up off the floor if that starts to bother your neck. Don't put your feet down, but switch your feet. Keep pulling down with your belly button like you're trying to touch the floor underneath you with your belly button. Remember, you don't have to have both legs up. You can always set your right foot down for a little bit if you need a break, or if this is starting to pull on your hip or your low back. It shouldn't pull on your low back if you're pulling down with your belly button. That should keep your low back flat to the floor without any kind of arching. Keeping in mind that your legs are about 35 pounds each, so right now your lower part of your abs are holding about 70 pounds of just dead weight. And then we're going to take this bottom foot to meet the top foot so that your ankles are crossed over one another. And I prefer to point the toes. We're to pull down with your belly button and lift with your hips. So some people, you might not come up very high. I can go way up high, but you really want to watch out that you're going slow enough that you're not using momentum. No cheating here. And also you can have your arms out to the side if you need some help from your palms. I like to just let my belly do it. So I'm going to lift my hips and down. Lift my hips and down. So you'll notice I'm not kicking my knees up. That's momentum. And I'm not going so fast that I'm just hinging. I'm going straight down with the belly button, straight up with the hips. We'll do about 10 to 15 on the other side. Just cross the opposite ankle in front and go. Now leave your feet extended and crossed. You're going to take your arms out wide in the shape of a T with the palms facing the floor. We're going to take windshield wipers. So you're going to drop your feet as far as you can. Keep your shoulder on the floor, your opposite shoulder on the floor. Pull, 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 down, down, down with your belly button to come back to center. Drop it to the other side. I didn't position myself very well. I've got a fireplace in my way. So one oblique is going to be really great, the other one's not going to be so great, that's fine. Now, of course, if this is really pulling on your back, you can take bent knees, and that will be a little bit nicer on your back. Now we'll come back to center. If you just want to take a Apasana and pull your knees into your chest, that's totally fine, especially if you have any kind of back or neck issues. We're going to take a shoulder stand. So if you want to take the supported shoulder stand, you're going to get your elbows on the floor right next to you, get your hands ready to grasp under your hips. You're going to kick your feet up, grab under your hips. If you feel like you can do more, use your core, drop your hands, and if you want even more, you can drop back into plow with your feet behind you, and the key is that you don't want to get crunched. You want to use your core to lift your hips toward the ceiling and keep your torso straight-ish, and that means that you're not going to put so much pressure in your neck. If you're doing something like this, that you'll really feel that in your neck quickly, and we don't want that. So we want you to lift with your core, your body weight toward the ceiling. Just going to do a little reading while I'm here, see where we're headed next. Okay, So from here, it's up to you if you want to tap your feet, pull your knees in. Tap your feet, pull your knees in. So again, what's actually lifting your legs is you're pulling down with your belly, and then once your feet are off the floor, then your thighs can engage to pull your knees in, but it's your belly that's actually doing the lift. And remember, that's about 35 pounds. Now, if you're feeling frisky, no low back issues, you don't put your feet all the way down, and you don't necessarily want them to come all the way up. You can, but it sucks a lot worse if you stick to that 45 degrees. And we don't want any space between your back and your floor, so that's where the pulling down with your belly button will come in handy. And also, again, my feet are engaged. I like to point my toes. You can flex your feet if you like, but make sure your knees are about straight. Just make sure your feet are engaged. And release. You can do that for a lot longer, but I just find it really tightens up your back. Your back starts to kind of take over, and it's a little insidious. You don't really know it's happening. So we're going to flip over onto the belly now. And we're going to take some shoulder lifts. You're going to get your hands, I dream a genie style, under your chin and your elbows out to the side. And the important thing here is that you don't press your belly into the floor to lift you up, because that'll make you throw up. We also don't want you to lift your feet. So you're going to pull your belly button up away from the floor. Imagine there's a string between your shoulder blades and someone just pulled up and back on it, and down. Up with the belly, relax the belly. Belly into the backbone, belly relaxes. So we're using the muscles of our upper back to lift, and you really don't want your feet to get involved, because then that means the hamstrings are doing the work for you, and we want those deep core muscles to work. And a lot of people think of your core as your abs, but your core actually wraps around you like a girdle, so your back is involved in that as well. Now we're going to hold this, and you're just going to tap your elbows. So you're really focusing on keeping your belly button pulled up towards your backbone. You're never pushing it in. You can breathe with your belly tucked in. If you can't breathe, your belly's tucked in too far. And bring it down. So just to give the shoulders and the upper back a rest, we are going to take the heel lift. So just like someone grabbed you by the fronts of your ankles to play wheelbarrow, you're going to pull up with your belly and lift with your heels. We don't want you to kick your feet towards your hips. We want you to keep, again, your knees relatively straight. There's naturally going to be a bend there. We just don't want it to be a very big one. So you just squeeze with your glutes to help get that lift in the legs, and then your lower back and your belly are helping to lift. And now we'll extend your arms out with the palms facing each other, and we'll take the full Superman. So here it is okay for you to lift your arms and your legs. You're going to pull up with the belly button and down. Up with the belly and down. Then we can take a swimming Superman. You come up, and one arm and one opposite leg will go down. Keep pulling up with your belly. And we'll bring it in. So next, let's take bow pose or cradle. You are going to kick your heels to your hips, and for baby bear, you can just drop the feet from side to side. Mama bear, you can either grab onto your pant leg or the front of your foot or ankle, and you can just push the heels into the hips and get a nice hip flexor and quad stretch. Or you can lift up with your belly, kick your feet up and back, and sort of be balanced on your belly. And release it down. Usually when my stomach starts gurgling, I know that I've been there long enough, so use that as a reference point. That's sort of like your inside saying, thank you, that was fun. Now we're going to take locust pose. So you might like to have a hand towel to put your mouth on. I'm going to put my chin on the floor, which is technically not how you do it. You want to make sure that you're not putting pressure in your neck. But I've just sort of grown accustomed to doing that to teach, so I can see what the students are doing. This is not going to work if you have bad elbows. So what you're going to do is you're going to get the palm of your hand and you're going to roll, and you're going to get your palm to face the floor underneath you, and you're going to roll your thigh back on top. You do the same thing on the other side. So it sort of looks like you've fallen down. So here's where, I have my chin on the floor so I can keep talking. Most people will sort of tuck their lips in and do that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to point my toes and I'm going to pull up with my belly button. Imagine there's a string at the small of my back. Press into my fingertips and lift. You might find that you want to start with your elbows out. Nothing much happens because your torso stays down, but it's a good way to build up into locust. So if you have bad elbows, we don't want you to feel excluded. And we'll release. We're going to press up and back into child's pose, stretch that all out. We've been doing a lot of back bends, so we'll stretch the other way. And we're complete with the back and the belly series. We have left the standing series and the cool down for part 4 of the Core Crusher 2000. Stay tuned. Rock out with your core gap.